Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon. I'm one of the Career Readiness Consultants for the Kent Intermediate School District. And today I welcome Cynthia Miller. She's a charge nurse in the emergency room here at Mercy Health in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Welcome, Cindy. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Good. I'm glad you're here today. We're really excited to hear about your career path, your story, and help these young people get some more information so they can make an educated career decision.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I'm excited to be able to share my story.
Awesome. So just to get us started, we will talk about what a charge nurse is in just a minute, but well, maybe you should give just a big picture what that is before we hear about your career path.
Sure. Charge nurse is basically kind of like the manager of the day in the department. Basically, what we do is we assign what nurses are going to be working where. We help with patient flow through the department. We help with assignments other than, for instance, some patients need patient companions with them for safety issues. So we kind of run just the day-to-day stuff, the happenings actually in the department at the time.
That's great. And we'll definitely dig more into that. So when you were 16 or 17, did you think you'd grow up to be a charge nurse, Cindy?
Nursing was nowhere in my field of vision at all, not even close.
What were you thinking of doing back then? Give us a little bit of your journey.
I originally went to Davenport College for accounting, and I have a little bit too big of a personality to sit behind a desk and count numbers all day. I just didn't feel the socialness of it. I then went and switched to hospitality management, where I finished my education with a internship at Disney World, which was fantastic, but then got married and had babies and decided to go do hair. So I did hair for a living for a while, and then life changed and brought me into the world of nursing.
So accounting, I love that path. So accounting, hospitality management, down to Disney, back to hair.
Yep.
And what was that transition then that you decided to become a nurse? What drew you?
So the transition is actually super personal and something I've actually learned to be able to talk about. My best friend, my brother, was killed in a car accident. And a very tough thing for my family. And I am the kind of person that I need to find a way to make something good out of something bad. And the only way I could figure out how to do that was to look at what I felt was lacking in the care that my brother received and or we as a family received, from communication to, I mean, just the whole thing. It was just so bad. And I decided that I would make a difference in people's lives by being the one that makes that communication happen when these awful things are happening, to try and be that little bit of light in that dark moment for people.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear of your loss, and I'm so glad you've been able to be part of a solution, for sure.
Thank you.
So you had already had a college degree. Had you finished your hospitality management? Or
I did.
Yep. And so then did you have to start from scratch, or how did that work?
I did, because there's nothing that correlates between hospitality management and nursing. I did a fast track program, which I thought was going to work, which if it sounds too good to be true, it really is too good. It was through Excelsior University in New York, and it was become an EMT basic and then start nursing classes right away. It was supposed to be a year-long program. It was quite more expensive, but I was able to get some financial aid. And by the time I was done with my emergency technician basic level, the nursing portion had gotten shut down. So I was there with an EMT, which was great. I found I loved emergency trauma. I liked the adrenaline of taking care of patients that are truly very acutely ill, urgent, and then I was kind of stuck. What do I do? Where do I go for the nursing portion of it? I didn't want to be in just that EMT portion for the rest of my life.
So I want young people to hear that EMT experience, the emergency medical technician, is that
Yep.
what the EMT stands
Yep.
Was one of those first steps that Cindy did in her career as she transitioned into nursing, and that taught her something to the next level. So you thought, man, I really equipped and my personality works for this trauma thing. So then you finished up and got a bachelor's in nursing?
I initially started with I did my nursing prerequisites, and while I was on a waiting list for that, I went and got my full paramedic, so EMT paramedic, and then went into the program and only received my associate's degree at that point in time. nowadays they really encourage you to have a bachelor's degree, and to get hired into a hospital facility, generally speaking, you already have to have a bachelor's degree in nursing, or you have to sign a contract stating that you'll get it within so many years of your hire. So I was lucky that I was kind of grandfathered in prior to the bachelor's program starting.
Good for you. So again, young people, if we're counting how many careers, we have to add paramedic now to that list after hair, that she was a paramedic before she became a nurse. Not to digress a little bit from, nursing, but tell us just a little bit about the EMT, about that experience, because it might pique some young people's interest. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, we work with a lot of EMTs in the emergency department. EMT, the basic level is very minimal education, but it kind of gets your spark interested. It gets you a little bit of education about the human body, anatomy and physiology, emergency medicine in general, very basic level, but it kind of gets your hands on working with patients, because bedside manner, how to talk to patients, how to work with patients, how to work closely in hand with other people that are also trying to deal with how to talk to patients. That's something that I learned quickly going through that program is, the camaraderie of the group. You will never see anything better than EMT, the groups of emergency medical technicians, whether they're basic, specialist, or paramedic level. They have hearts and souls, and they are there for each other. They truly become a family because they see a lot of stuff out there. So again, definitely a lot of fun, but there's some pretty traumatic scenes that you come upon. And so you got to make sure that you're taking care of your patients, but you need to make sure that you're focusing on taking care of yourself as well. It's not the easiest on some of the scenes.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to say that they used to have a ride along. I think there was a way to even kind of check that particular career out. You guys will have to investigate that, see if you can get a ride along if that piques your interest. So here you got to be a paramedic, and we're trained in that. And so you got that first front end view of those situations. So you're like, I want to work in the ER. Mm-hmm. So tell us what it's like being a nurse in the emergency room.
It's crazy, actually. It's the most organized chaos I think I've ever seen in my life. We never know when patients are coming in. We never know what they're coming in with. We have to have a wide range of knowledge on a bunch of different illnesses and injuries. It's kind of like it really, like, I don't know the in-depths of a lot of different diseases or processes, but I know what markers I'm looking for in their labs. I know how to tell if somebody's sick. I can look at somebody and tell if they're sick or not sick. And we spend our entire day just kind of reeling with what's coming and what's going. We do a lot of strokes. My Mercy Health is a stroke system. We're number one in the region for stroke response times. And so we have a lot of people that are acutely ill, and time is of essence. So it's a lot of high pressure, and just like EMS, EMTs, we are like a tight family. And even like the siblings that you have now that you don't get along with, there are some that I'm like, you're mad at them today, but man, when push comes to shove and things get hairy, we are the best of friends, and we work like a well-oiled machine together. We all know our roles, and we all know what's expected, and we all know what the outcome looks like that we want to achieve.
That's pretty powerful stuff. That personality that you mentioned, that hospitality, going down to Disney, where you have a lot of just things changing all the time. This is what career chats are about for me, is that young people can start to hear the different personalities and how they kind of fit into different departments, right? Because some have lots of appointments through the day, you know exactly what disease is coming in, what's happening all day, whereas yours is not. And so what would you say are some personality traits then that one would have to even work in the ER?
I hear a lot that we in the ER we have very strong personalities, but I don't want your students to walk away thinking that if you don't have a strong personality, emergency wouldn't work for you. I have been able to teach and lead, be a preceptor. So I'm like the one person that's training these new nurses and lead them through a bunch of different things. And I've had a couple people that I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure that they're going to make it. They're quieter. They keep more to themselves. They're much sweeter than I am. And I think, ooh, they're going to get hurt here, because we do have some patients that are not very friendly, not very nice. We deal a lot with aggression, verbally and physically, from patients at times. And I was just afraid that some of these people were going to get hurt. So yes, the majority of us are very strong, like big personalities, but some of the best ER nurses are the ones that aren't the big personalities. They are there with their beautiful golden hearts that are there to just do patient care and provide that comfort for the people that are going through what could be their worst day ever.
It's something we talked about. We had a registered nurse on Tuesday, and we talked about how nursing as a whole is just a beautiful umbrella, and there's so many things you can do under it. And I love that you're describing just a whole nother different kind of nursing, because I was in the ER one time with my son, and I remember thinking that these nurses they're tough cookies. Because there were some people who were drunk, for example, or mental health issues, and they were very verbally, and the way the nurses handled them, I was like, wow, I don't think the average student knows that you can have kind of a cross between law enforcement and nursing just in that department alone. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started, even with me, I'm a very like strong exterior person. I'm very tough. There were nights that I went home and cried because these, especially I think the mental health population, some of them that have a behavioral portion to it as well, they say things purposefully to hurt you, and they know what to say. And as silly as it sounds, last week, somebody, a very large woman who was there for mental health issues was calling me the weirdest names and some not so kind names. And one of them was being like super fat. And she kept like talking about how fat I was. And I think people know that we as women don't like to be called fat. It's a thing. So you really have to like separate yourself from their statements. You have to be able to say that, not take it personally. And that's not going to happen naturally. That's a road that you travel as you take care of these patients. And it still hits you once in a while. They hit a nerve once in a while, and you're like, oh man, am I losing my compassion for my people? But it's really tough sometimes to be able to deal with those personalities that truly don't care about others or are intentionally attempting to hurt you or harm, like offend you. So it's a process to work through to be able to still provide compassionate care because they are your patient. So provide that compassionate care while they hurl these insults at you. It's a road.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the kind of low points of the job for sure.
Yeah.
What would be some of maybe you have a story that stands out to you of just really what one of the best things about working in ER is?
Oh man, my best thing is the camaraderie with some of the patients that I take care of. Unfortunately, there's a lot of times that the real sick patients don't get a lot of our attention, the ones that really deserve it, because we are so busy taking care of those mental health and the needier patients. But I had an honor a few weeks ago to take care of a gentleman who sadly was diagnosed with cancer and pretty advanced. And because of COVID, people haven't been doing screenings as frequently. Primary care physician appointments have been set back, all that kind of stuff. So sadly, the ED, we've been seeing a lot more and diagnosing a lot more of those cancer type diagnoses. But I was able to take care of this gentleman. His wife was a retired nurse, so her and I could chit chat. And his diagnosis was super, super sad. He was given like a 6 to 8 month prognosis. And the next day I worked. So I went to the gift shop and I bought a little balloon because you don't make that connection with everybody. I just was blessed. We weren't so busy. I was blessed to be able to sit in that room and talk with them and get to know them. And he wasn't in the room. He was out getting a CAT scan. So I just left a balloon and a card there for him. Last week I got a call from him, which is like a cool thing. And he called to thank me for my obvious love and compassion for what I do and for the people I take care of. And I don't need a pat on the back. I do my job because I love it. And I do my job because I know I do it well and it makes an impact. But to have him verbally recognize that he could see how much I cared for him was probably one of the biggest things in my 10 years of being a nurse.
Well, you shared your motivation to even do this, that you wanted to make a difference for families and be some of that good care when they came in with very hard times. And I love that you got to receive that, because that was one of your whole reasons for going in it. And so it came full circle for you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. As far as, I want young people to understand, again, a little bit, because this is an exciting thing to have because a lot of kids will say, I want to go into the ER, but what does that really mean? So help us understand a myth, what's not true about your job that maybe they've seen on TV or heard about. Any myths that you'd like to address of what it is or is not?
I love all the medical shows too, your ERs, your traumas, all those things. We do not have backstage romances. However, I shouldn't say that. I met my husband at work, but it's not all sit and socialize and take care of a patient occasionally and then get to know each other a little bit more. I remember, and I was an experienced paramedic. I was an experienced nurse. I had another job for 6 months prior to working in the hospital. And I remember in my orientation watching these people like chit chat a little bit and, hey, ask about this person's son by name. And I'm just sitting and I'm documenting and I'm trying to do all the things that are expected of me. And I thought, how in the world do these people even have time to get to know each other? There's so much to do. Once you find your rhythm, it gets easier. But I mean, there are days that, we're messing with our staffing numbers because our budget is this, and then you end up seeing far more patients than you expected. So there's no help. You are in charge of 4 patients and there's no one able to come help you. And you have 2 that are visibly like dying in front of you that you need to go take care of now. And how do you deal with that? When there are so many things about TV, my husband and I always joke about the fact that if you get shot in the chest, you need a sling. Slings are not for getting shot in the chest. People are either dying too quickly on TV or it takes them too long to die, which is like in reality doesn't happen. There are some shows that are a little bit more realistic, but the thing that always kills me is how much social time they all seem to have and all these little romances. It's like, oh, it's so cute, but no, it doesn't happen.
That's funny. What are some other jobs around you as a nurse in ER that young people could aspire to if they think they might like this type of environment? Because it doesn't have to be a 4-year degree for everybody.
Yeah.
So what other kind of jobs are in ER?
Yeah, so full range, and we have all of this directly in the ED. Not every hospital does, so we're really lucky to have a huge team. So the first is when they come in, they're seen by a registration clerk. And so these people get the patient registered. They help them with making sure they have insurance. At St. Mary's, we have a program that helps people that maybe don't have as much money, less income. So we have a program that they can apply for that will help them with some financial needs regarding their bills. And then they're called PCAs, patient care assistants. Many of these in the ED have to have some experience, either be in nursing school, be an EMT basic, an EMT paramedic, or have been a PCA somewhere else. The floors will take others and do more training, but in the ED, we need someone that's quick to pick up, already has some of the knowledge and skills. We have obviously the registered nurse, which is me. We have CAT scan right in our emergency department. So radiology is a CAT scan and x-ray. So radiology is one way that you can go. You can become just a technician, or you can become even more experienced to become one of the experts in the area. We have environmental services. They go around and they help keep things stocked and cleaned. And we have actually a stocker that does all the big stocking items that we run out of quickly in the ED. He makes sure that we have all the things that we need. And then it goes up the chain to nurses that have gone into advanced leadership, that have degrees bigger than or more than just a bachelor's degree in nursing. So we have people that are certified nurse leaders and specialists that have their master's in specific in that area that help us with day-to-day operations, or help us to see things that we're missing, different specialty points that we're missing, like different patient care, doing what we call evidence-based. So they do research and they come up with what the best safe practices for each patient in a certain area specific to something. And this person will make sure that we are doing all the evidence-based practice up to date. So she's watching all of the research and coming with all of the statistics and implementing them in the department.
I think that's like so great to have an overview. So students, right out of high school, that registration clerk is something that you could get into. I love that you differentiated too, that the PCAs, those patient care assistants, or that you don't get in like right away. You have to maybe be trained in another department. Because even with nursing, right, it's my understanding that you don't usually go right into ER nurse right out of college, that maybe you have to come from a different department first. I think that's helpful for young people to understand how that works.
Yeah, generally speaking, that used to be the rule. Some of the hospitals now, including ours, has you know how doctors always have to go through residency. We now have a residency program as well. And so in fact, a lot of the PCAs that are working in my department right now are working there to kind of get a foot in the door because we have this residency. And so we, throughout the year, will take brand new out of school RNs that apply to our residency program. Most of them happen to work with us. And so they've proven their abilities, they've proven their work ethic, they've proven that they're a hard worker. And so they actually get into that residency a lot quicker and easier because they are working in that department. But yeah, that every department in the hospital takes on resident nurses now. And it's a 1-year program, and it's man, some of the nurses that come out of there are just awe-inspiring and impressive. They're very, very amazing.
That's so cool. You had mentioned when we were talking before the session that there's a new field called forensic nursing.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Sure. So I just recently graduated from Oakland University last December. Oakland is on the east side of the state. I did a lot of it online, and I did a lot of it on the east side of the state. Luckily, I was able to come to a few resources here in the west side of Michigan. Forensic nursing is something where medical and law kind of cross. We work directly, specifically with trauma patients, and that trauma can be anything from abuse and neglect to gunshot wounds to stabbings, anything where there's any potential trauma, whether it be physical trauma or mental trauma. It's divided into 3 areas. One area is obviously the abuse neglect. So it's a peds and geriatric. It includes sexual assault nursing. So I've been trained on how to obtain sexual assault kits on patients that have been sexually assaulted, whether they're adult or child, male or female. The other portion is medical death investigation. And so I've worked with death investigators throughout the area. And we can either assist on the scene where the deceased body is found, and we go through and we kind of make sure that there's either a reason for a natural cause of death, or if there's a suspicious or an unknown cause, then we help determine if they need to go in for a postmortem exam. And then the last thing is actually kind of my forte. It's emergency disaster and preparedness. And with my history of the EMT, in which I also didn't tell you I was a firefighter for 8 years. So I'm all about that. Emergency disaster and preparedness is like you're working for FEMA or Homeland Security and helping states, cities, companies respond to a disaster, a health disaster, a national disaster, and being able to provide resources. And so through that, I was also able to become a volunteer for Red Cross. So I'm able to go help people that have been victims of burns, of their houses have burned down, and helping them find resources. So it's kind of connected to me, all kinds of different things. I don't have a job specific to forensic nursing, and it's going to be difficult because it is so new. There's not really any jobs here that are defined as forensic nursing. My hope and goal right now is looking for something in a leadership position that I can start implementing and teaching those forensic points to, and helping people get certified in specialties specific to forensics.
Fascinating, Cindy, fascinating. And I think especially for the young people that might be drawn to those, I think about CSI to be crime scene investigators, that this is just one real clear avenue to do the same kind of work. And so again, we might just assume it's one job title, but no, even I've met the folks from the morgue, and, they get to go to some of the scenes too, and are part of the,
Yep.
So we only have about 4 minutes left, really 3 by the time I need to kind of wrap up. People are impressed with how much you've accomplished for sure. How do you deal with the burnout? One of the students would like to know, how do you, with all those kind of heavy things?
Yeah, burnout is tough. And we're lucky we have a program that they offer us that if you feel you need to reach out, and sadly, we as ER nurses are really bad at reaching out. It is 100% the family that I work with that keeps me going. Any big incident, any death or any critical, especially like critical cases that involve children, we do what we call a debriefing, and anybody that was part of that team, within a half an hour after getting things settled, the charge nurse, we will call a debriefing, and everybody that wants to, we don't force anybody to be a part of it, but anybody that wants to will meet in, we have a specific room we'll meet in, and we just kind of discuss, what went bad, what went good, how are we feeling? Anybody that's willing to share feelings. And is there room for improvement? What can we work on? We had one recently when a person he walked into the department and then collapsed in our triage area, and he passed away. And that was a tough one, because when you get to the hardest ones are when you actually sit and talk to them and kind of get to know them a little bit. And the next thing you know that they're gone, it's difficult. And so those debriefings are really important. And I'll tell you, your teammates, they make or break the difference. You have to have the teammates that love and support.
I've really heard that a lot over the years since I've been in this job with people in your department, that the friendships are so tight, and part of that mental health maintaining strategy. It's been fascinating learning about all your jobs. I mean, we literally could have you on to talk about 4 different types of jobs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to give the students a few resources, Cindy. You'll have a chance to kind of give a word of wisdom here as we wrap up. But young people, if you are new to career chats, I had given out myhot.org the other day. It's a Michigan-based website specifically to help you discover a health career that might be a good fit for you. There's a career test on there, and they have all the colleges in Michigan. But I'm a big fan. I'm going to keep talking about this at every career chat. But ONET Online is a great place to find out how much money do they make, what kind of schooling, what are the tasks, all those kind of details is at ONET. And I took a screenshot. It didn't show up. Oh, shoot. I had taken a screenshot. I had put in charge nurse up into this little box here, and it gave me a listing of about 15 different types of nursing specialties. So I wanted to show you that slide. I'm sorry, I must have not unhit it. So again, if you haven't been onto ONET since we started doing these career chats, or if you're new to career chats, please go to ONET online and do that investigation. Cindy had given us permission when she signed up. Hopefully this is still okay, Cindy. If you have any very specific questions, follow up with her at her email, which is cynthia.miller@mercyhealth.com. And again, I'll try to copy that and put that into the, I can't copy it right now. So anyway, that's what and so I'm Krista Harmon at kentisd.org. So word of wisdom, Cindy, we'll finish you out. It's 4 o'clock already. Does that go fast?
Yes, it does. My husband and I always share this with our children. In your career choices, you either need to do a job that pays you enough to do what you love, or one that you love to go to every day. There has to be a trade-off. So one that makes you enough money that you can go do all the things that you want to do. And you might be not so greatly happy in your 40 hours, but man, look at all the things you can do. Or every day you wake up and you just cannot wait to go to that job.
And I just want to remind young people that Cindy didn't have that all figured out right out of high school. She didn't have it all figured out of college. It took her some time. So please be gentle on yourselves that you have to have it all figured out. As you heard clearly from Cindy, our life, things can continue to morph and change. And so just start what you like and keep moving down that. She loved Disney. Those were all going good at the time. And then, she got married, fell in love, had babies. So that changed some things. So it's good, One final question we had from Madison. She just wondered, what was the title of nurses that work along with a forensic pathologist, again, to determine the cause of death?
Sure, that's called the forensic nurse, and that's a master's degree. Yep. You can also look into, so you think of a PA as a physician's assistant, but there's also a newer program, and it's called a pathology assistant. They go through the same education as a physician assistant, but they're in their last portion is specific to pathology. So they work directly in the east side of the state at Wayne State. They use a lot of the pathology assistants there.
Yeah, that's who I got to meet in the morgue. So it's pretty fascinating, the pathology assistant.
Amazing people.
The students are very grateful for your time. Lots of comments in the chat. Cindy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm gonna.
Yeah, and feel free